Millions of NASA supporters must have been intrigued that the scheduled swearing in of Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga as President of the People's Republic of Kenya was scuttled 48 hours to the event. According to Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula, who are the public faces who stopped the event, a major breakthrough was in the offing, a breakthrough that they said could resolve the deep crisis Kenya was plunged in. The story went that foreign diplomats, in conjunction with international partners, were on the brink of brokering a compromise deal that could have rendered the swearing in of Raila Odinga redundant, if not unnecessary. More than a week after the interlocutory talks allegedly kicked off, there has been no official report from NASA about what transpired during the talks. However, according to our POINTMAN, who was close to the highly secretive NASA Jubilee contacts, the underground talks hit a snag as soon as the protagonists assumed their seats. As had been reported earlier, the anticipated solution of the diplomats to end the crisis was based on a double-pronged presidential system that could have seen both Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta share power. Although Jubilee hoodwinked the diplomats that this was an option they could accommodate if it could stop Raila swearing in, our spies have intimated that the conditions put forward by NASA crippled the talks just as the options were being put on the table. This explains why both Moses Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi, who swallowed the bait, have been tight-lipped about the discussions. By stopping Raila swearing in, the expectation from NASA supporters was that the fundamental reasons that torpedoed Raila's big day must have been extremely strong and that they would soon be known. On the contrary, there has been tomb-like silence about the talks from the entire NASA leadership. To be exact, the silence has raised more questions than answers among NASA supporters. The total collapse of the talks also explains why NASA reignited Raila's swearing-in plans while at the same time adding more fuel to the raging fire of political secession. KRA spies say that as a strategy, NASA leadership gave impossible conditions which paralyzed the talks before they even began. What exactly happened? And what is the explanation behind the secrecy surrounding the talks? Here is the inside edition. 1. The two presidential system that was being floated by diplomats hit a snag because when the message was conveyed to the NASA leadership, the big question that could not be answered was who amongst the two presidents would become the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Raila has shared power with former President Mwai Kibaki before, but he was basically powerless following the brokering of the Nusumukate government by Kofi Annan after Kibaki stole Raila's presidency in 2007. According to KRA sources, Raila was not going to accept a presidential position in a situation where the other president could continue sending police to kill NASA supporters in case of dispute. Jubilee allegedly refused to accept the idea that Raila would command portions of the military as Uhuru Kenyatta commanded the Kiambu wing of Kikuyu soldiers. This was the first point of disagreement. Secondly, NASA is said to have demanded that a two-pronged presidential system was out of the question unless the economy was also to be divided into two, with Raila controlling half of the budget and having powers to appoint his own cabinet as Jubilee remained in control of the other half of the economy. Jubilee found this condition impossible to meet. This disagreement allegedly arose after it emerged that the finance docket would fall under Uhuru Kenyatta. NASA allegedly argued that they would not accept to be part of a government in which Jubilee would be left with the opportunity of starving NASA counties of cash. Thirdly, NASA had stated clearly that even in that two-presidential system, NASA was only ready to be part of a caretaker government that would last for 6 months, after which fresh elections would be called. Jubilee, on the other hand, wanted such a government to last for 5 years, a proposal that NASA rejected. The talks hit a crisis. Another problem was that, according to NASA, any election that would be conducted after 6 months under a caretaker government would only be conducted by the United Nations and not the tainted IEBC, which NASA said was now corrupt beyond reform. Jubilee rejected this position. The fifth problem was that under any caretaker government, NASA wanted all police officers who killed over 250 NASA supporters investigated and prosecuted as part of national healing. Jubilee refused to negotiate on this condition. The sixth problem was that Jubilee had wanted NASA to abandon the idea of people's assemblies as a condition of accepting to sit down for talks. However, NASA rejected this position, arguing that the people's assemblies were within the confines of the Constitution and that they could not abolish the assemblies because through them the people had a legal and political alternative in the face of Jubilee dictatorship and electoral fraud. The talks therefore hit a deadlock. 7. Another issue was that NASA had insisted that the servers be open, not to demonstrate that Raila Odinga won the August 8th election, but as a sign of openness and faith. NASA had argued that the Supreme Court had ordered that the servers be opened and that the only way through which Jubilee could regain trust amongst NASA supporters was to obey court orders and open the servers. Jubilee refused, causing the talks to collapse. 8. Another thorny issue NASA allegedly raised was that the diplomats, together with what they were calling the international community, needed to condemn the Jubilee government for the killing of over 250 NASA supporters. NASA had accused the diplomats of being partisan and demanded that if the talks were to move to the next stage, neutral interlocutors had to be agreed upon. The talks failed because the wide differences between the two parties frustrated the agenda. This is the truth of the matter. 9. The final nail that was hammered into the coffin before the talks were buried deep 6 feet under was allegedly a demand by the diplomats that once the talks got underway, NASA would not engage in any public demonstrations, mass action, or fresh political rallies that could jeopardize the talks. The diplomats had also wanted NASA to break the economic boycott they had instituted on grounds that the boycotts were hurting the economy. NASA refused and the talks finally broke down. NASA then reverted to the agenda of swearing in of Raila Odinga, while it also initiated fresh moves towards secession. There were no media briefings because NASA was itself divided internally on whether or not the talks were necessary at a time when Raila's swearing in ceremony was thought to have reached a point of no return. The Mudavadi Wetangula Kalonzo wing wanted the talks to proceed, while the Raila Orengo Mudhama wing, supported by David Ndei and Hassan Joho, wanted Raila sworn in. To avoid exposing a rift within NASA on the question of the talks, the leadership decided to give the talks a chance while at the same time desisting from expressing their disagreements in public. This explains why the NASA leadership went into total silence during the talks. In fact, they almost went underground. In the meantime, those who initiated the talks failed, even though Raila was never sworn in, while the diplomats and their international community have now been silenced. Worse still, NASA leadership has advised the diplomats to stop poking their noses into Kenyan politics, and Godek, the US ambassador to Kenya, is not happy. Similarly, the British ambassador has been told to shut up. As plans to swear Raila Odinga continues and as secession moves also get underway, you can take it from us that there will be no fresh talks with Jubilee, that is between NASA and Jubilee. Kenya is therefore hurtling towards a fresh and deeper crisis that will make it impossible for Jubilee to govern, following a 20% voter turnout in another stolen election, with Raila Odinga set to be sworn in. Economic boycott set to continue. A tax boycott set to be announced by NASA. Secession plans back on track. Massive mass action on the cards. Uhuru Kenyatta's fake government not recognized by the international community, and the government unable to service external debt or fund the counties. Uhuru Kenyatta's government is heading for total collapse unless a miracle happens. This is Okoth Osewe reporting from the Kenya Red Alliance Studios. Thanks for watching.